Hello 8th grade team, welcome to the ELA Park Prep Unit video. I'm excited to have you here even if it's via video. Along with this video, you'll need the participant guide and you'll need the pacing calendar opened as well. I'll show you how to get to the participant guide in just a second. Let's get started. So goals for today. We'll discuss the guiding principles that inform our ELA test prep work. We'll also have a chance to create goals and expectations for the Park Prep unit. And lastly, we'll use the resources provided to plan for the first band of this unit. Our agenda. First, we'll look at a park overview. How is park built? What are the different units that the test includes? Next, we'll look at our Park Prep unit design. We looked at the park overview to design this unit, and we like to discuss that with you. Next, we'll look at the guiding principles for the unit. And last, we'll end with some planning time. Before we get started, let me guide you to show you where you can find the participant guide. If you go to the pacing calendar, you'll find the participant guide under Unit Overview. And it's called Participant Handout. Go ahead and click on this document. Once you're here, make a copy. Then you'll click on Important Principles. Test preparation isn't just test practice. As you read through this important article, we'd like you to keep the following questions in mind. What stood out to you? What is missing here that is important to you? What are some big takeaways? And any questions you may have. Go ahead, pause the video, read through the article, and keep these questions in mind. Welcome back. Now we'll look at park structures and blueprints. Before we get started, think about the following reflection questions. After looking at the blueprints and structures, think about what are some of your new understandings and how can this information help you plan and prepare students for park? What are some wonderings and questions you may have that you like to address either as a team at your school or with me when I visit your campus? Okay, let's look first at park blueprints. For example, students will receive either Form A or Form B. What stays consistent is the research simulation task, and also that all tests are 90 minutes. So as you can see, Unit 2 stays the same throughout. What's different, for example, let's look at Form A. Students who receive this form will take the literary analysis task along with a short passage. And students who receive Form B will take the narrative writing task along with a long or a pair passage. And then in Unit 2, they will take the research simulation task. Let's look a little closer. Look at Form A. Students with this form will look at 2 passages in the literary analysis task. The questions that they'll get will be a combination of multiple choice and tech enhanced. You see a total up to 8, where max points are 4. They'll have vocabulary questions, and they'll also have an open-ended question. They will also have a short passage set to answer from. This short passage will not have an open-ended question. Then they will take the research simulation task. That includes an informational text, and it tests students again in multiple choice and tech-enhanced questions, vocabulary, and an open response. Let's look at Form B. Students who take this test will have a narrative writing task that includes a literary text. And again, just like Form A, students will have a combination of multiple choice and tech-enhanced items, no vocabulary questions, and an open-ended response. Then they may see a long or pair passage set. Then in their next test, they will see the research simulation task. Here are the item types. Go ahead and take a few minutes to read each type and their descriptions. Important things to note here. For evidence-based selected response or multiple choice, students will see a part A and part B combo. They will never see questions that stand alone. For tech-enhanced questions, students will see drag and drop, cut and paste. Those sometimes have to shade text or move items to show relationships. And what we call race responses or open-ended questions, these are called prose constructor responses on Park. So let's come back to our reflection questions. What are some new understandings? How can this information help you plan and prepare for students and prepare them for Park? And what may be some wonderings and questions that you have? Go ahead and pause the video and answer these questions in your participant guide. Let's now move on to the writing tasks. So although this is literary analysis, I've included all the tasks for 8th grade. Look through these and think about which of these have our students already had practice with. Underline them, make a note of them. Now look and see which of these have our students not had practice with, and therefore they need more knowledge and practice around these type of questions. And again, just to reinforce, these will be the skills the students will see open-ended responses on in the 3 essays that they will have to write about. Here's a picture of our Park Prep unit design. Our Park Prep unit has 5 weeks. As you can see, we start with the literary analysis task. That would take us 2 weeks. Then we move on to the research simulation task. That's 2 weeks. And we end with the narrative writing task. And that's just 1 week. Students in each will complete 2 full Park tests for each band. For task 1, that will be a combination of share and independent. And task 2 will be an independent test that will last 90 minutes, mimicking the actual Park test. Here are the guiding principles of this unit. 1, students will get many at-bats with each task, with decreasing levels of support across each band. Teachers will collect and respond to data strategically. Students understand the demands of the test and feel comfortable and confident. 4, teachers see this process as an opportunity to set students up to transfer reading and writing skills, communicate high expectations, and believe that all students have the skills they need to tackle this test. And students use their strong reading and writing habits to tackle the test. This means focusing on their thinking jobs, planning, and question attack habits for each type of the text and item. And last, students explain and revise their thinking through discussion with peers, feedback from teachers, and self-reflection. What does each band look like? First, we start with joyful read out loud based on class choice. Then we move into student choice independent reading for a total of 45 minutes of our block, where students will either engage in a class read out loud, or they will be reading they will be reading independently for 30 minutes. When it comes to the mini lessons, this is what it would look like. We start with a share experience to introduce a type of reading and writing for the task. Then we move into an independent practice on a partial task. Then we'll have a shared planning and independent writing for the task. And last, students will participate in an independent practice on a full task. For each bend, there will be between 2 and 5 responsive teaching days, strategically placed throughout so that you can respond to students' work. Let's look at an example pacing calendar, and specifically Bend 1. When you look up here, we see the questions the students will answer throughout. What types of texts will I see? What kind of writing will I complete? And what kind of thinking will I need to do? As you can see, we start with a park overview on day 1. Make sure to read through these slides and adjust to fit your style and the needs of your students. Then we move on to a share experience. Just like we do in close reading, you would choose a transferable takeaway here to ensure students get an experience that then they can mimic for day 2 with an independent task that we call partial, because it's the second half of, or the companion text to the share experience. Then you'll have a chance to use the responsive teaching toolkit to plan a responsive lesson based on how students did on Tuesday and Wednesday. And from there, you have a few more responsive lessons. And then on Thursday, March 28th, we have a full task. More on these type of lessons coming up. Like we mentioned before, we'll start with a joyful read aloud every day. This is a class choice. This is something that you want to read out loud, that your students also want to read out loud. And we will spend 30 minutes. We will give 30 minutes of our block to student choice independent reading. Here are 3 novels that you can use for your read out loud. These novels are texts that we haven't used in our curriculum, so students may not be familiar with. All right, now we're going to look at the Bend at a glance from a teacher perspective and the Bend at a glance from a student perspective. For teachers, we'll have 1 introductory lesson. We'll have 2 share experience lessons, 2 independent tasks, and 4 responsive teaching lessons. For students, we'll start with an understanding of why, what, and how of the PARCC ELA assessment. Students will complete 1 partial and 1 full literary analysis task unit independently. And they'll have received feedback about their independent task and implement that feedback into practice. Reflection questions. We've gone through a lot of information. Now take some time to jot down what are unit goals and expectations for this unit. And if you want to think specifically for Bend 1. What are student habits we need to teach, model, and reinforce for students throughout this unit for effective implementation? Pause this video. Think about the following 2 questions and answer them on your participant guide. Okay, let's zoom in on literary analysis. Here's what students will be required to do if they have to take this test, if they have test A or form A. 1, students carefully read 2 literary fiction texts. Students answer multiple choice and text-enhanced questions about each text to demonstrate their ability to do close analytic reading and then compare and synthesize ideas. And last, students then write a literary analysis essay about the 2 texts using textual evidence from both texts. Let's keep in mind two of our guiding principles as we introduce you to the different types of lessons. One is that teachers respond strategically to student work and to data. And two, and in this case, number 6, students explain and revise their thinking through discussion with peers, feedback from teachers, and self-reflection. So let's look at what happens in a week, and in this case, in 2 weeks. What we've highlighted here are our responsive teaching lessons. But you'll see there are 3 types here. We start with a share experience. Then students will participate in a partial experience. You'll then have enough data to look for misconceptions and the misconception that you want to address on the following day. So this will be for Thursday, March 23rd. Then you'll teach students or review how to answer an open-ended response based on the 2 readings that they did on Tuesday and a Wednesday. And again, you'll have a chance to respond to student work, to student writing on that Monday. On Tuesday, like we've mentioned, students will take the full task, independent literary analysis task, and you'll have 2 days to respond based on how they did. Here's what this may look like. Here are tools that you may use to respond to student work. So for multiple choice and tech enhance, you'll collect student data and norm on the questions. Then analyze. How many students answer the question correctly? What was the most common distractor? And therefore, what is the misconception? Then name the trends. Students' misconception is, so therefore they need additional instruction on. And then you'll determine the literary analysis task, responsive teaching approach. You'll do a similar protocol with writing. And again, this trend follows for the following week for Wednesday and Thursday. When looking at the responsive teaching, here's what you'll see. On the left side, you have a menu of mini lessons targeting test-taking skills. On the right side, you have a menu of mini lessons that target or reinforce reading skills for fiction. Based on student trends, you'll decide which one of these is most appropriate. Then on page 2, you'll see other park release tests, items. You'll see other park release tests with answer keys and sample tasks. Okay, let's get to some planning. Your first lesson will be a share experience. And that will be on the excerpt from Confetti Girl. So go ahead and turn back to your participant guide. And now we are working on letter D, the share experience. If you click on here, you'll have access to the lesson. Read through this lesson and plan out your main idea. Make sure to have your non-negotiable main idea, thinking jobs and your non-negotiable main idea at the bottom under step 3. Go ahead and pause this video and complete your thinking jobs for this first lesson. You may not have enough time right now as you watch the video, but we hope that you're able to come back to the following. You have access to the tests, the sample tests the students will take in 2 places, on TestNav and also on Edulastic. Please take the time to take these tests for yourself so that you can experience the rigor and style that 8th graders will be asked to answer to in these tests. Again, this may not be right now, but before you teach this bend, please take the time to take these tests so you can familiarize yourself and you can know what the test is asking of students. For planning, make sure to plan a launch lesson for Unit 5. There's already an example there. Like I said, adjust it to your style and your student needs. Plan the intellectual prep for the responsive teaching lesson on March 23rd. And think about the systems and routines of this unit. Again, I'll be at your school on my assigned days. If you have any questions, please, let's address them then. If not, you can always email me. You can always send me a text, and I'm always available. Thank you so much.